What's going on, my dear friends? Today in this video, let's learn and master the Angular framework's latest version. So let's get started. Alright guys, in the previous lecture, we learned how to fetch an array object using the ng4 directive. So in this lecture, let's work on the how to fetch an array using the new Angular syntax approach. So first let's write the new for loop syntax. So how do we write that? So add the @ symbol, after this directive name for, after this next the looping condition parentheses. At last, don't forget to add the directive scope. Now let's write the loop. So user, this is the variable. So in this new loop syntax, we don't need to pass the let keyword, right? So the loop is user of users obj, which is our users array object variable. Next, when using this new syntax approach, we must pass the track option to this loop. Otherwise, this will throw an error. So after this, add a semicolon and the track. After this, pass the loop variable user. That's it. So guys, next let's load the values. So how do we do that? For this, we'll use string interpolation. So inside this loop scope, add a string interpolation scope. After this, add the looping array variable, which is this user. That's it. So save this and go to the browser. As you guys can see here, inside the browser, we got this object. So why is that? Can you guys remember in the last lecture, we learned about this, right? So guys, we are getting this object value inside the browser because with this, we are directly accessing the entire object. So in order to fix this, we have to pass the object key name here. So pass that after this user variable. So user.name. Save this and go to the browser. This time we got the users names, but this loaded in a single row. So in order to see this clearly, let's load this inside of UL tags. So how do we do that? So first wrap this for loop inside of UL tags. After that, inside this loop scope, create li tags and put this string interpolation value inside of li tags. That's it. So save this all and go to the browser. As you guys can see here, this time the users names are loaded as unordered list. Awesome, right? So guys, this is how we deal with an array object using the new for syntax approach in Angular. So guys, in this lecture, let's look at another awesome feature in Angular, which is the Angular change detection mechanism. So let's do this. First, I want to add a new user object to our current object array programmatically. So guys, let's do this when pressing a button. So when user press the button, we'll call to a method, and from that method, we'll load the new user object into our user obj array. So let's see this in action. Alright, so start this by adding a new user. We'll create a button for this purpose. So guys, go to the HTML file and add the button tags. And the button text will be add new user. Now I want to call a method when I click this button. So for this, we need to bind a click event binding to this button. So how do we bind a click event? Yes, of course. So inside the button tag, add the event click inside of brackets. Next, assign this to a method called something add new user. So pass this inside quotes and don't forget to add the method parentheses. So guys, this will call the add new user method when this button clicked. So as you guys can see here, we are getting a compile error here. Why is that? Because still we don't have this method declared. So in order to fix this, let's create the add new user method in our components TypeScript file. So go to the component.ts file and create the method. So the method name is add new user. Carefully follow these capital simple letters. So after this, add the parentheses and the method scope. Now inside this, let's add a new user object to our array. So how do we do that? For this, we can use the JavaScript array push method, right? So let's see this in action. Inside this method, first let's define a new user object to push inside this array. First define a variable, let user, and assign this to the user object, open and close curly brackets. Inside this, add the key value pairs, ID, and set the value as number 5. Next name, add the name something, user1, pass this inside quotes. Next the email, add this user1@gmail.com and pass this also as a string value inside quotes. Alright, so next let's push this object into our user object. So down here, access this user object variable, this keyword, after this dot, user obj, again dot, push method. So after this, don't forget to add the parentheses. Now inside this parentheses, pass the object that we want to push to our array, which is this user. So pass that here inside this push method parentheses as parameter. That's it. So guys, this push method will insert our new user object inside the array as the last array value. So I think that's it. Save this all and go to the browser. Now you should see the add new user button. Click on it. As you guys can see here, once I press the add new user button, a new user is added to our array and the user's name is loaded inside the browser view. So if I press the button again, another new user is rendered inside the browser view. So every time I click this button, you can see a new user added to the list without reloading the page. So this happens in real time thanks to the Angular's change detection mechanism. So what's happening here? Angular's change detection mechanism detects changes in the application such as a button click, an AJAX request, or any data value changes. When such changes occur, Angular updates the DOM to reflect these changes in real time. So when we click the add new user button, Angular detects the new user object added to the array and updates the list in the view immediately and in real time. So without needing to refresh anything. Once again guys, Angular's change detection mechanism is like a small bot inside our application. This bot continuously watches our entire application looking for any changes. When such changes occur, this change detection bot immediately acts and updates the DOM according to the changes in real time. This is what we simply call the change detection mechanism in Angular. So this is one of the reasons the Angular framework is getting popular day by day. Alright guys, in the previous lecture we learned how to push a new value to our user's array object, and also we learned how the Angular change detection mechanism works. So now think, in any case, if we want to remove a user object from the user obj array, how do we do that? Very simple. So let's do this. First thing first, I want to add a delete button to each array element that loads inside the browser. So go to the HTML file and add the delete button inside the first list of user where we use the ng4 to fetch the array object. So now next to this string interpolation, add the delete button. So open and close button tags and the button text will be delete. Now next I want to call a method from this button to write the delete operation code. So bind a click event to this. Inside brackets, the event is click, and next the method name is something on delete. So after this, add the parentheses. Now we have the delete button. Let's work on the delete logic. So go to the app component is file and create the onDelete method. So down here, method name is onDelete. Next, the parentheses and the method scope. So guys, we are dealing with an array, right? So I want to delete or remove the relevant user object when the user click the delete button. Wait, so save this and go to the browser. Now as you guys can see here, we got this delete button on each and every user value loaded inside the browser. So if I add another new user using our previous button, for this also we got another new delete button. So guys, why do we need separate delete button for each and every value? Can you guys guess? Yes, of course. So guys, having a delete button for each user allows us to remove specific user individually. Think if we want to delete the John from this list. So for this, we can simply click on the delete button which is located in front of the John value, not the other delete buttons. So if I click on the Raj delete button, this will remove only the Raj user object, not the others. So this is important for user management functionality where you might want to delete specific entries without affecting the rest of the list. Hope you guys got the idea. Alright, so next guys, to delete a specific value from an array, we need the array index number of target deleting object. So how do we get that? For this, we have another JavaScript method in array, index of method. If we pass any array value to this method, this will return the array index number. So let's see this in action. In order to get the index number, we have to pass the target array value to this method, right? So how do we do that? So we can pass that to this method via binding this as a parameter value. So our array object is stored inside the user variable. So pass the user variable to this onDelete method inside this parentheses. Awesome. So now we are passing the user object. From the onDelete method, let's capture it using a new variable, something user. So guys, don't get confused. This user is inside the HTML file where we're storing the looping array user objects. And this user is located inside the TS file. We created this to capture the parameter. So these two variables are totally different. Okay, so next set this parameter variable type as object. Now inside this method, let's first get the index number of the array. So this dot array variable is users obj. After this again dot and the index of method. After this add the parentheses. So this method required the array value as the parameter. So pass that here. Pass this user parameter variable inside this parentheses. So next store this inside of a variable something let index. Awesome. So we have successfully captured the index value. Wait, let's log this down so we can see this clearly. Down here at the console.log and pass this index variable to this. Now save this all and go to the browser. Click on one of these delete buttons. As you guys can see here inside the browser console, we got the index number of relevant user values. Perfect, right? Alright, so next by using this, we can delete the users from the users obj array. So let's see this in action. Go to the app component is file. As I mentioned before, for this we have another method called splice in JavaScript. So let's do this. After this again add the array this dot users obj. After this dot splice and the parentheses. Guys, this method requires two parameters. One is the index number and the next one is the number of items that we want to delete. So pass the index variable as the first parameter, and as the second parameter pass number 1. So we want to delete only one item at once. That's it. So save this and go to the browser. Click on this John's delete button. As you guys can see here, this deleted the John from this list. Next, let's click on the Raj delete button. As you guys can see here, this remove the Raj from the list. Awesome, right? So guys, clicking the delete button next to a user will trigger the onDelete method, which will remove that user from the user's obj array. Angular's change detection mechanism will then automatically update the view to reflect the changes in real time, removing the user from the list displayed in the browser. So every time you click the delete button, the specific user will be removed from the list without needing to refresh the page. This is another demo of an Angular's change detection mechanism in handling dynamic updates to the DOM. Hope you guys got the idea. Awesome, right? Alright guys, so in the previous lecture we did this delete operation. For this delete operation we had to use the index of the array to delete the relevant array object. So for this we used this index of JavaScript array method. But guys, in Angular we have a simple approach for this. In Angular we can directly get the index of the looping array using the ng4 directive with just one line of code, right? So let's see this in action. There's not much here, just simply add this after this ng4 loop. Add a semicolon. After this again define another variable for index. So let I assign index. So guys, with this index, ng4 loop will throw the current index number of the looping array. So in order to use that, we have to assign this into a variable. So this is what we did with this new variable. Alright, so we successfully captured the index of the object array values. Next, before we move on, let's load these index numbers inside the browser view so we can understand this clearly. So before the string interpolation, add another string interpolation and add the index variable, which is this I. That's it. So save this and go to the browser. As you guys can see here, this time we got the index numbers loaded inside the browser. These numbers started from 0. Why is that? Because we are looping through an array. So array index starting from 0. Simple, right? Alright, so guys, this is how we capture the index of the looping array in Angular ng4 directive way. So now let's see how we can use this to deal with the delete operation. Nothing much here. This time just simply pass this index variable into this onDelete method parameter instead of the previous user's object. So as you guys can see here, after we changing this parameter variable, we are getting this compile error. Why is that? Because this time we are sending an index number, not an object. So in order to fix this, we have to change this variable type to number. Wait, I'll comment this and let's create another method for this approach so we can compare them both clearly. Down here again create the onDelete method. Inside parentheses, create the parameter variable something index and this time set this type as number. Now inside this method, nothing like previous, we don't need to use the index of method because we already have the index number. So just simply add this splice method to remove that target value from the user's array. So down here, this dot our array users obj and again dot splice method. So now inside this parentheses, pass the index number. That's it. So save this all and go to the browser. Press one of these delete button. As you guys can see here, when I click the button, that relevant item removed from the view, which means this is working as previous. Awesome, right? So guys, with a single line of code, we achieved the delete operation as we expected. So this is the beauty of Angular. Alright, so before we move on, some of you might wonder why we need to assign the index to a variable instead of using it directly. The reason is that ng4 in Angular provides a mechanism to capture the current loop's index and bind it to a local template variable. This local variable can then be used within the scope of the loop to access the current index. Without assigning it to a variable, we don't have a way to reference the index value directly in the template. So that's why we are assigning this to a new template variable. Hope you guys got the idea. Alright guys, that's it for this lecture. Let's move on to the next lecture.